I'm going to tell you something most of you really don't want to hear. You're not broke because you're unlucky. You're not stuck because the system is rigged. You're stuck because your money's one big soup. Everything you earn, everything you spend, every goal, every fear, every dream, you dump it all into one checking account and hope for the best. That's not a wealth strategy. That's a mess. Rich people don't live like that. They don't wake up and say, I wonder what's in my account today. They don't guess if they can take a vacation or buy a property or walk away from a job. Why? Because their money is not soup. Their money is buckets. Clear, separate, ruthless buckets. Each bucket has a mission. Each bucket has rules. Each bucket protects the others. You think they got multi-millionaire status by being good with money? No. They got there by not mixing things that should never touch. Today I'm going to walk you through what I call the 5-bucket system. Survival bucket for staying alive and sleeping at night. Stability bucket for cleaning up your past and protecting your downside. Growth bucket for compounding into 7 figures and beyond. Option bucket for pouncing when opportunity shows up bloody and on sale. Freedom bucket for turning wealth into cash flow that funds the rest of your life. You get these 5 right over 10, 20 years, and it is very hard not to end up well off. You ignore them, mix them, dip into them whenever you feel like it, and you can make 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, even 7 figures in income, and still end up tired, anxious, and dependent. So let's build your buckets. Step 0, why your 1-bucket life is killing you. Before we build the system, let's be honest about your current situation. Right now, for most of you, everything looks like this. Your paycheck lands in one account. Bills, Netflix, food, debt, treat yourself, emergency, and investing all come out of the same pot. You save when you remember. You invest when you feel guilty. You panic whenever something breaks because you don't know if you're using rent money or future money. You're not running a financial system. You're running financial improv. And improv doesn't scale. One unexpected car repair, one job loss, one medical bill, one recession, and suddenly you're raiding the tiny bit you invested, liquidating accounts, paying penalties, and starting over from zero. Then you tell yourself, investing doesn't work. No, your structure doesn't work. Wealthy people think in layers. What keeps me alive this month? What protects me from ruin? What grows over decades? What lets me strike when everyone else is scared? What pays me when I stop working? 5 different jobs, 5 different buckets. You want to copy the rich? Don't copy their toys. Copy their structure. Let's start with bucket 1. Bucket 1, the survival bucket. Stay alive. Stay sane. Your first job is not to be a genius investor. Your first job is don't die and don't panic. You can't build wealth if every surprise turns into a personal crisis. You can't hold long-term investments if a broken transmission forces you to liquidate them at a loss. That's what the survival bucket is for. This bucket has one mission. Make sure I can eat, live indoors, and handle basic emergencies without touching my long-term money. Think of it as your life support system. What goes in this bucket? 3 things. Monthly essentials. Rent, mortgage, utilities, basic food, transport, meds. Emergency cash. A buffer for life happens events. Short-term known expenses. The bills and events you know are coming in the next 3-12 months. Insurance premiums, annual fees, minor car maintenance. A modest trip you've already committed to. That's it. No investing. No crypto. No stock picking. Just survival insanity. How big should it be? Start simple. Step 1. Calculate your bare bones monthly nut. Not your ideal lifestyle. Your minimum viable life. A modest place to live. Basic groceries. Transport to work. Medication. insurance, basic utilities, and phone. That number, call it $X per month, is your oxygen cost. Step 2, aim for 3-6 months of that number in relatively safe liquid form. High yield savings, money market, very short-term instruments. If your bare minimum is $2,000 per month, your survival bucket target is $6,000, $12,000. For some of you, that sounds impossible. Good. Now you know your real problem. Your first serious financial mission is not get rich. It's buy myself 3-6 months of breathing room. Because a person with no cash buffer makes stupid decisions. They sell long-term assets at the worst possible time. They take jobs they hate because they have no choice. They make deals from a position of desperation. You want better life decisions? Build your survival bucket. Rules of the survival bucket. No gambling with it. This is not an opportunity fund. You don't put this into meme stocks, options, or the latest thing your cousin texted you. No, he goes spending from it. It's not for, I had a tough week so I deserve something purchases. It's not for impulsive travel or gadgets. Refill it before anything else. If you tap it for a real emergency, your next job is to refill it before you pretend you're back to normal. This bucket is boring. It should be. Boring survival bucket, calm brain. Calm brain, better long-term decisions. You can't be a rational investor if you're one paycheck away from panic. Bucket 2, the stability bucket. Clean up your past, protect your downside. Once you're not drowning month to month, you deal with the next threat, your past. I'm talking about high interest debt, unprotected risks, structural problems that can blow you up. This is the stability bucket. Its mission, remove the landmines from my financial life. You are not building a castle on a minefield. You defuse the mines first. What belongs in the stability bucket? High interest consumer debt paydown. If you're paying 18-25% on credit cards while looking for a 10-12% investment return, you're not investing. You're just playing money ping pong with a bank that always wins. Stability bucket rule has shown any double-digit non-productive debt is a 5-alarm fire. You use a portion of your monthly surplus specifically for killing this debt. List all your debts, balance, interest rate, minimum payment. Attack either the highest interest rate, debt avalanche, or the smallest balance to gain momentum. Debt snowball. Pick one approach. Commit. Don't hop. Basic protection, insurance, and legal basics. This bucket also covers essential insurance, health, basic term life if you have dependents, maybe renters, homeowners, a minimal legal setup if needed, a will, beneficiary designations, making sure your accounts don't go straight into chaos if you get hit by a bus. You don't need an army of lawyers. You need just enough structure so your entire life doesn't cave in from one bad event. Fixing structural money leaks. Some leaks are not survival bucket expenses. They're stability killers. Overpriced financial products with huge hidden fees. Terrible loan terms you can refinance. Useless extended warranties and junk add-ons. Anything that quietly drains you every month belongs here. How to fund this bucket. Your income now has a few jobs. Survival bucket gets its monthly top-up and stays at target. A fixed percentage goes to stability until your high-interest debt and basic protections are handled. The rest starts feeding your growth and option buckets. We'll get there. Most people flip this. They chase stock tips while dragging chains of 20% APR balances behind them. You want to be rich while you sleep? First, stop paying other people to be rich while they sleep. Every dollar in interest you don't pay is a guaranteed return. Zero volatility. Zero stock picking skill required. You get a lot richer over a lifetime just by not bleeding. Bucket 3. The growth bucket. Your multi-millionaire engine. Now we finally get to the part you actually want to talk about. Getting rich, not Instagram rich. Not I made 500% this quarter rich. Quiet, boring, multi-millionaire rich. This is your growth bucket. Its mission: turn my monthly surplus into long-term ownership of productive assets that compound for decades. Let me translate that into plain English. You take money from your work. You use it to buy pieces of businesses and assets that make money. You leave them alone long enough for compounding to show up. That's it. That's the engine. What goes in the growth bucket? Broad market index funds. For most people, this is the correct default. Low-cost index funds that own large swaths of the stock market. You don't stock pick. You own the whole playing field. You set it up to auto-buy monthly because here's the simple math. Over long stretches, markets have returned around 8-10% annually. At that rate, money roughly doubles every 7-9 years. 10, 20, 30 years of that with consistent contributions turns modest incomes into serious portfolios. The growth bucket is where $500, $800, $1,000, $500 a month becomes 6 and 7 figures, not from cleverness, from compounding simple, understandable individual holdings. If and only if you're willing to study, you might own 5-10 individual companies you deeply understand. You know how they make money. You've read their reports. You're willing to hold them through bad headlines because you believe in the underlying business. But hear me clearly. Owning 40 random stocks you barely recognize is not growth. It's clutter. The growth bucket thrives on clarity. Rules of the growth bucket. You do not raid this for lifestyle. New phone, new car, vacation. Those are survival or freedom bucket decisions later. Not growth bucket raids. The moment you treat this bucket like an ATM, you break the engine. You keep it mostly automated. You don't try to time every dip. Stop buying because you feel weird about the market. Sit on the sidelines for years waiting for a crash. You pick an allocation. Automate monthly contributions. Rebalance occasionally. Let time and dividends do their work. You accept boredom and pain. Growth is not a straight line. Some years you'll be up 20-30%. Some years you'll be down 20-30%. If you panic sell every time it hurts, you are not in the growth bucket game. You're in the emotion bucket game. The growth bucket rewards duration, not drama. Most multi-millionaire stories from normal careers have a boring core. 10-30 years of contributions, reasonable returns, no catastrophic interruptions. You want the magic? That's the magic. Bucket 4, the option bucket, your strike when others panic fund. This is the bucket almost nobody has, and it's why they miss the biggest opportunities. The option bucket's mission: give me dry powder so that when things get ugly, I'm not just surviving, I'm shopping. Remember 2008? 2000? The COVID crash in 2020? Prices dropped. Fear spiked. Everyone said this is the end. Then, markets recovered. Good assets bounced. People who had cash and courage made generational deals in stocks, real estate, businesses. Most people watched from the sidelines because they were over-leveraged. They were maxed out. Their survival bucket was empty. Their growth bucket was their only bucket, and they were too scared to add to it. The option bucket is your solution. What goes in the option bucket? Crisis opportunity cash, not the same as survival cash. This is capital you are willing to deploy when there is blood in the streets. Deep market pullbacks, real estate distress, business valuations collapsing temporarily. You're not trying to catch exact bottoms. You're just someone with cash when everyone else is trapped in fear. Career, life, flexibility, cash. Maybe the opportunity isn't in markets. Maybe it's quitting a toxic job to take a pay cut for a better track, moving cities for a better role, taking 6 months to build a project that could become an asset, buying into a small business with strong fundamentals. This bucket is for option value, the ability to say yes when most people can only say, I wish. How to build the option bucket. You don't prioritize this before survival, stability, and basic growth. You fund survival first. Kill high-interest chains with stability. Get your growth bucket contributing consistently. Then skim a small portion of your monthly surplus, say 5-15% into option. You let it build slowly in very safe, liquid places. You don't spend it because flights were cheap or I deserved a treat. Rules of the option bucket. It's not for everyday annoyances. New couch, new phone, weekend trip. That's not opportunity. That's lifestyle. You don't drain your option bucket for boredom. You deploy it when conditions, not feelings, are extreme. You define rough conditions in advance. If main indexes drop roughly 30% plus, I will deploy chunks of the option bucket into growth assets. If a great property business is distressed and passes my quality filter, I consider using this. You don't wake up one day and say, I feel like using the option bucket. You use it when reality is screaming sale and everyone else is running. You rebuild it after deployment. If you use 50% of your option bucket in a crash, your next multi-year plan includes refilling it. This bucket is part of your long-term pattern, not a one-time stunt. Multi-millionaires are built not just by earning and compounding, but by owning more when prices are stupidly low. You can't do that from zero. You do it from a strong growth bucket and a healthy option bucket. Bucket 5, the freedom bucket, turning wealth into cash flow and choices. Most people think millions is the goal. It isn't. A big number with no structure behind it is just a target for fear. You'll wake up every day thinking, what if I lose it? When can I actually slow down? Can I retire? Can I say no to this client, this boss, this city? Freedom is not a net worth. Freedom is cash flow that covers the life you actually want on terms you control. That's what the freedom bucket is about. Its mission, convert my accumulated wealth into stable, sustainable income that funds my time, energy, and values. This is where you gradually shift focus from how big is my pile to how much does my pile pay me every month without me lifting a finger. What goes in the freedom bucket? Cash flow assets spun off from growth. As your growth bucket swells, you may tilt some holdings toward dividend-paying, low-volatility assets, pay off solid rental properties that now throw off more net cash, move a reasonable portion into safer, income-oriented vehicles as you age. You don't dump growth for freedom in a panic. You gradually rebalance. Distribution rules. You set policies like, I will only withdraw 3-4% of my freedom bucket per year. I will let any excess performance over that reinvest to protect against inflation and bad years. I won't increase my lifestyle just because markets had one good year. Freedom bucket income is dividends, interest, rents, business distributions, systematic, planned withdrawals. It is not sporadic gambling wins. One-time windfalls you immediately spend. Phases of the freedom bucket. Seeding phase, early career. You might not fund this separately yet. You're mostly building growth and option. Freedom is a concept, not an active bucket. Transition phase, mid-career. Your growth bucket gets large enough that you start asking, what happens if I stop adding new money? You may shift a portion into more income-focused holdings. Run actual retirement math. If I withdrew 3-4% from this, what monthly number would that be? Harvest phase. You build enough that work becomes optional. You can downshift. You can fund causes, family support, and legacy without destroying the engine. This is where the 5-bucket system shows its real power. Survival keeps you safe. Stability keeps you from blowing up. Growth builds your pile. Option lets you make power moves. Freedom lets you enjoy and direct the results without fear. You didn't get lucky. You ran the system, putting it all together. How the 5 buckets build multimillionaires. Let me show you how this looks over a life. Years 1-3. Chaos to structure. Right now, maybe, you're in debt. You have no emergency fund. You're dabbling in random investments. Everything is one big soup. You build survival. Get 1-3 months of expenses in cash. Then aim for 3-6. Attack stability. Kill the worst debts. Fix your protections. Start a tiny growth stream. Even $100 month into an index fund. Forget freedom. Option is a distant idea. Your life goes from panic away from disaster to I can breathe. Years 3-7. From stability to serious growth. You get your survival bucket to target and maintain it. Slaughter your high interest debt. Increase your monthly surplus by not inflating your lifestyle with every raise. Pump more into growth. Start trickling 5-10% into option. You begin to see actual numbers. A portfolio that's not just a toy. Net worth climbing each year. Stress around money dropping. Years 7-15. The compounding turn. This is where most people quit. You don't. By now, growth is large enough that market moves make a difference. You've got a modest option bucket for downturns. Survival and stability are just background systems you maintain. You keep your lifestyle behind your income. Let growth and option work together, buying more when markets are ugly. Start to glimpse freedom math. If my assets pay me 3-4% a year, what does that number look like? The machine gets heavy. Every extra year adds more than the last. Years 15 plus. Quiet multimillionaire status. By this point, if you've consistently produced surplus, avoided dumb blow-ups, fed growth, used option in crises, not looted your buckets every time you were bored, you can wake up with a multi-6 or 7-figure set of assets, a freedom bucket that could cover a modest life, maybe more, the ability to reduce work, change careers, or step away. You didn't win a lottery. You ran a system ruthlessly. Final message. Your life needs buckets, not magic. Most of you are chasing tactics. What's the best ETF? What stock will 10x? Should I buy now or wait? Those are small questions. The big question is, what does my system look like for the next 10, 20, 30 years? If your answer is a checking account and vibes, you already know why you're stuck. Start simple. Name your 5 buckets. Decide what each one is for. Write 2-3 rules for each. Assign percentages of your monthly cash flow. Then follow the rules. Not perfectly, just relentlessly enough that 10 years from now, your life looks nothing like today. You don't need to be a genius. You need buckets, discipline, and time. That's how multimillionaires are actually built, quietly, while everyone else waits for a miracle. Now go label your accounts properly and stop dumping your entire financial life into one confused pot.